Namaste, and welcome to our podcast on the Amazing Vedas, where we are going to delve into both the secrets as well as the hidden meanings of the Vedas in a language that is simple and accessible to not just people like you and me, but to the younger generation. And I'm really delighted to welcome Dr. Pariksith Singh. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Namaste and
Thank you.
welcome. I just want to say a few words for our listeners because this is the first of our series. The first thing I want to say is Dr. Singh. He is the chairman of the board of Veterinary University, which is hosting this podcast. He's also the CEO of Access Healthcare Physicians, LLC, which is located in Spring Hill in Florida. And my name is Makarand R. I am the incumbent of the Sri Aurobindo chair, which in Sanskrit we like to call Sri Aravind Pragya Peetham. That is, it is a chair, a platform where we want to, in a sense, explore the Gnostic consciousness, the higher consciousness. And what better way to do this than to go back to the Veda? So, before we delve into the topic of today's podcast, which is really fascinating, the first love song of humanity, can you please tell us why the Vedas are important when we talk about, higher consciousness or the transformation of consciousness or the Gnostic consciousness? Why are the Vedas important?
See, the Vedas are our first poetry, right? First documented that what we have. They are our first attempt at versification. And what a fabulous achievement. And we believe that it's at least 3,700 years old, though it could be older, and traditionally we consider them eternal. Now, eternal means there is something in them that is eternal. Veda is the root vid means to know, but it also means to see. And all it's trying to do is allow us, I believe, not only document what our great ancestors and ancient saw or knew, but also developing that ability to see in us. That is what I think the
Exactly.
attempt was.
I want to say this is a very important point. I just wanted to
Yes.
underline it briefly. In
Yes.
fact, Veda, Vid, that root is the same root that gives us the English word wit.
Yes, that's correct. That's
And
correct.
it really means, in some ways, knowledge. So the Vedas do refer to these, should I say, compendiums of hymns or wonderful mantras, invocations, the first poetry of humanity, not of any
Yes.
particular tradition per se, but they also refer to, in a sense, knowledge. It's not just about books. It's not just about things which are externalized,
Right.
but it's an ever flowing stream of knowledge. And
Yes.
that's why, in a sense, we don't just go back to the Vedas, as Swami Dayanand Saraswati said so beautifully, but we also go forward from the Vedas.
Yes, yes. It's a repository of some of the most fabulous discoveries of our ancients. And I see this as a legacy for all humanity. Uh, it is passed on pre division, pre nationalism, pre nation states. The concept of nation states, I believe, had not appeared. Even religion had not really appeared. So technically, it belongs to all humanity, as all our great traditions
Exactly.
do.
It is not to be identified with any particular organized religion,
That's correct.
even though in India, what we call the Sanatana Dharma Parampara, or the
Yes.
tradition of Sanatana Dharma, which is also, if you look at the meaning of the word Sanatana,
Right.
it is, in a sense, the eternal flow of
Right.
reality and truth, is supposedly the custodian. And we might spend just a couple of minutes on that. How is it, sir, that if this is such an ancient, you won't even call it scripture because it got into print or into writing only recently, only in the
Yes.
19th century, thanks
Yes.
to, British colonialism in India. How is it that we still have this text? Isn't it a miracle of transmission?
Yes, it is. It is, and for that we should give thanks to a tradition of memorization of the text and then transmitting it generation to generation. And each generation, the young ones, the students, would spend at least 12 to 15 years memorizing, learning. And what fabulous memorization! You're talking about at least 1,500 what are called riks or mantras, which you would probably in English we would say couplets, right? 10,500. They would memorize it forward. They would memorize it backward. They would. They had various schemes of memorization. They would memorize each broken, what is called pada part, every word, and then as the words came together in sandhi, they would memorize them. Then there was something called ghana part, which means you would pronounce the word, then the next word, then you would pronounce the word again 3 times, and the next word twice, and then you would keep moving. What a fabulous way of passing this ancient tradition to us. If you look at even the pronunciation, like Chaucer, if you look at Chaucer 600 years ago, we don't know how they spoke English, but we know how at least 3,700 years ago our forefathers, ancients, spoke this language, because the pronunciation has been preserved precisely. And we can learn so much about linguistics, about anthropology, about sociology, our culture, um, semantics, semiology, then religion, philosophy, the origins of symbolism. We can learn so much about how humanity evolved, how language evolved, poetry, arts, I mean, music, mathematics, meditation. It is a fabulous record of what we were 3,007 years ago, 700
And
years ago.
that's why we are calling this series the Amazing
It
Vedas.
is. It is amazing.
And in our show notes, you'll see a link to
Yes.
Dr. Singh's X handle on the Amazing Vedas. I've also commented now and then on it. And we
Yes.
want to continue this conversation forward. And just to mention, maybe next time or in the links below, we might give you a taste of the chanting of the Vedas, including
Yes.
the Ghanapathas, as you
Yes.
were mentioning, which are still there. There are still
Yes.
people who do this. So, in other words, we've seen that throughout the history or the known history of India, there were groups of people who had dedicated their lives to
Yes.
preserve these texts orally.
Yes.
In spite of all these upheavals, invasions, you genocides, and, so many kingdoms, the rise and fall of kingdoms, colonialism, Islamic invasions,
Yes.
European colonialism,
Yes.
and still somehow, in almost a miraculous way, you might even say,
Yes.
with divine sanction,
Yes.
these beautiful texts, which we call the Amazing Vedas, have been preserved for us. And one of the things I want to clarify is our approach to the Vedas, though it is, full of the highest, kind of reverence and respect, is not, religious or traditional in the sense that neither of us is a traditionally trained Pandit, but our approach is actually, in a sense, inspired, and guided by Sri Aurobindo, who is our guru. That is our lineage. We come from the lineage of Sri Aurobindo. And I must tell our viewers in our very first podcast that Sri Aurobindo, in a sense, gave us the key to the Vedas. And he wrote this amazing book. It's a great intellectual achievement, and it's called The Secret of the Veda. In a future episode, we will talk a little more about the secret of the Veda. But just to tell our viewers that our approach is not entirely, those of traditional, Vedic scholars or exegetes, but it's a very modern, contemporary approach, which brings me to, an important issue for us, Dr. Singh, which is that, you know, you and I are, in a sense, getting on, in our age, as well as, a good deal of our life is behind us. But one of the, inspirations or the impulses of this conversation is to bring the gifts or the treasures, Dhatamam, you know,
Yes.
the jewels of the Vedas, to the younger generation. So, I've taught, for 45 years, and I've often had younger students asking me, "Sir, what's the use of all this?" They've
Yes.
even asked me, "What's
Yes.
the use of reading Shakespeare? Who understands Shakespeare?" So suppose, on behalf of the younger viewers, I ask you, Dr. Singh, look, you're an established doctor, you've got a, thriving business and so forth. But what am I going to get if I, study the Vedas or even join this podcast with you? What's in it for
Yes.
me as a younger person, as a Gen Z person?
Well, simple things. I'm going to go to the practical things. Well, you'll be happier, I think. You will be calmer. You'll learn how to handle the problems of life better. And if I dare say, you will be more successful in life. Now, I've said it, and I know each word has layers and layers, but I all that I'm trying to do right now, just like our ancients preserved this knowledge for us, I'm just trying to bring it out for the new generation, which I think is our uh, dharma or our responsibility. And
Responsibility, yes.
and you come from a tradition of ancient rishis. You told me a lineage of people who brought out this knowledge. So I think if we can bring out this knowledge in a very impartial way, whether it's a modern analysis, whether it's ancient analysis, whether it's a Western interpretation or an Eastern interpretation, we are very open and we have brought it out so that people can learn from it. We have had some great Eastern writers and thinkers, especially in the last 150, 200 years, but this is a living tradition and I believe it will continue. But we've also had some great Western analysts, and I learned from them, and we share that. And I think if something can bring us together, also, if you're on a bigger scale, if something can bring us together, it's going back to our roots where we realize we share the same themes and the same memes,
And the
right?
same battles, you see, the human struggle
Yes,
continues. And
yes,
we really respect the younger people who want to make something of themselves in a world which is so complicated, uncertain, and
right.
confusing. And the Vedas also give us a foundation of ethics. They
Yes,
teach us, as you said rightly, how to succeed in the world by having the right values. And also, for struggling, struggling for what is right, but also, you know, I don't want to say gaming the system, though, because that has a sort of connotation which is not always good, but actually to energize ourselves so that we
yes,
accomplish our aims and goals. And we can talk about that in the future. But it really reminds me of one of the suggestions we had of what to call this series. And someone said, the viral Veda.
yes,
In a way, viral, yes, it is a moment, Dr. Singh, when a lot of people are going back to the Vedas. If
yes,
you
they
recall,
are.
I sent you a link today.
Yes,
There are architects, there are musicians, there are, people in high tech, there are linguists, there are people in programming, historians, non trained people, traditionalists, pundits, all kinds of people are opening up this cornucopia, this
yes,
treasure chest that is the Vedas. So I feel that if not the viral in that sense, at least, you know, it's a very important moment, I think, in humanity's own evolution. Sri Aurobindo called it the hour of God in a very
right.
evocative way. But I think it's a very important juncture today for humanity in this confused world. That we go back to the Veda, to our, as it were, or original scripture or source of guidance to understand better. And I think this is a wonderful segue, Dr. Singh, after having talked a little bit about our program, what we intend to do, and also to ask for the support of all our viewers. Please like and share this program if you, and please send us comments. We love to hear from you wherever you are. Tell us where you're listening in from. And if you have questions for Dr. Singh or for me, please do send them in your notes on our YouTube channel. So this is a good segue. We're about halfway through our introductory program to go to the title of, today's episode, the first love song of humanity. And here, Dr. Singh, I have to, as a sort of poet and somebody who admires literature, give you the credit at least for novelty, because, in all aesthetic traditions, that nutana, we have it in the first verse of the Veda also. I don't know anybody, frankly, who has called the first Rik or the first Sukta of the Rig Veda dedicated to Agni as our first love song. So, can you please unpack that for us? Why is it our first love song? Because, it's intriguing to me.
Yes. So the first, and I just wanted to add one line. We say go back to the Vedas, but Vedas still with us. We are carrying the words that we use today are the words, many of those words are we are using them. For example, what I'm going to say is going to ignite your brain. When I say that the word ignite was the first word of the Veda, Agni
Agni.
Mire. Agni is the ancient word which is Vedic, the older Sanskrit, right? The Vedic Sanskrit. That word has become ignite, right? What I'm going to say, if I say make you shine up like a diva, right? You look like a diva today. Where do you think that word is coming from? It
Diva
is
and Deva.
Deva. Deva means a being of light, or Deva means a being who lives in Dyau. Dyau is the skies above. It's another dimension. So from which comes, by the way, the great Jehovah, right?
And
Zeus.
also Theos, Dios,
Right. That's right.
Deus.
Right.
The words in Greek and Latin are
Right.
cognates of Sanskrit words.
Right.
But Dr. Singh, the first love song. Okay,
First
you
love
have
song. Okay.
ignited my
Let's.
curiosity.
Yes. So
But what about my heart? Are you going
yes.
to kindle the
Yes.
heart of the young ones
Heart. Yes.
who yeah, please
It is.
tell us why is it a love song?
Okay. It is a song of love. It is a song about love, and you can say the first introduction. Imagine the first feeling that you have, and you suddenly fall in love with someone. You imagine that your being changes completely. You're no longer who you were. You're no longer Professor Makarand Paranjape. You are somebody else. You move into a different dimension. And Agni, in Sri Aurobindo's way of looking, or the mother who's mother of Pondicherry, she saw Agni as agape, divine love. So to when you have divine love means no limitation. You're not loving one person or just one thing, but your love is open to the whole universe. You love something that is the true essence, the truth of our life, the divinity within us. So if agape, which is closely related, and he believed that agape and Agni are really the same thing, then it is a song about that divine love, that purity,
Wow,
that
wow.
intensity. But it
But
is
but but,
love
but
for that.
wouldn't you also say that even so-called carnal love,
Yes,
though we
yes,
don't distinguish the two in our Hindu tradition, it's
yes,
very beautiful that we
right,
don't consider carnal love to be sinful. I
right.
think you said something really important that, in any rom-com or any even Bollywood romance, look at Raj Kapoor, Nargiz, the
Yes,
face lit up. So, in a way, what you're really saying is that the object of love is like a shining, fascinating, alluring, uh,
yes.
almost unattainable, so beautiful. And all of that is Agni, would you say?
That's
And,
right, sir.
as you said in the Sufi tradition, being in love transforms the lover. They don't even care about the beloved because, जो कहते हैं वो नशा जो होता है,
Right.
इश्क का नशा. There are
Ishq.
so many stages of love.
Right.
So, would you say that all of that is in those first stanzas of the
Yes.
Veda?
Yes. And let's go back, look further to the first word, Agnim Ide. Ide is a word that has various meanings, because in Sanskrit you have each word has multiple meanings. So it's a language full of what is called polysemy, means each word has multiple significances, and that's just another genius of the language which we can talk about, because every root sound has a significance, and that is something that we use even today. But let me not jump ahead of myself. Uh, but Agnim Ide also means I adore Agni, I honor Agni, I worship Agni, I adore Agni. So not only am I showing my respect for that divinity, the divine love, but I adore it. So it's a double, it's a 1-2 punch, as you might say
No,
in the
no,
modern.
but 1 second. I mean,
Yes,
adoring Agni, it's a bit dangerous. What if I get burnt like the moth in the
yes,
flame?
yes. So this Agni is a creative Agni. This is not just a physical Agni. So Agni at
Oh,
each, so the Vedas saw the universe as a multi-dimensional um, existence. It's an existence together of multiple universes. What we call multiverse today, you could say something like that, but they call 7 lokas. So what are these lokas? Physical, right? At the physical level, Agni is fire. And without fire, where would humanity be? We wouldn't know how to cook. We wouldn't know how to protect ourselves. We wouldn't have businesses. We wouldn't have this laptop, energy. We wouldn't have all this. So just on a physical plane, Agni is our most powerful transformation that happened to humanity, human civilization. Once we discovered it, we suddenly became able to handle all the animals or the predators in the jungles and the woods, so to speak. But then we talk about Agni at another level, which is Agni at the vital level, at a physiologic level. And we call it in Sanskrit, we call it Jathar Agni, which in English, very poorly translated, would be fire in the
digestive
belly.
fire. Digestive fire.
Digestive
Yeah.
fire, right. But we also use the word fire in the belly. Do you have the drive to do something? Do you have the
Right.
fire in the belly? Well, it's the same symbol being used. Fire also is in our traditional healing, which is called Ayurveda. There is a fire of the dhatu, which is the physiologic processes, and the fire of the bhutas, which is the 5 elements. So fire
Elements.
as an element is a very special element. It is really not a thing. If you look at water, if you look at the earth or air, you can say these are things, right? Fire is not a thing. Fire is a process of change, of transformation. And fire is the purest element. You cannot
So, so,
contaminate.
so, 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 so let me stop you there. In other words, what you're saying is,
Right.
when I adore the fire like the ancient rishi,
Yes.
it's not that I'm adoring,
Physical.
literally some physical blazing fire and putting my hands there. Not at all. It
Yes.
actually means adore also means I nurture, I
Yes.
respect,
Yes.
I offer my
Yes.
oblations. And, when our children are growing up, you tell them, look, you love somebody, but be careful because you don't want to get burnt. So, in other words, when you adore something or someone, you also respect them. You
Yes.
don't want to, just go all over them. And,
Yes.
we tell especially the boys, listen, you know, don't try to come on too strong.
Yes.
Why do we say that? So, Agni, what you've just told us is not to be taken literally or merely literally, but Agni is like this energy
Yes.
that is everywhere. Sometimes
Yes.
it's implicit, sometimes you can actually stoke or light a fire, sometimes it's in embers. And as we speak, we see the pervasive, pervasive metaphors of
Yes.
fire in the language, stoking,
Yes. Yes.
igniting,
Yes.
etc. So, in other words, you've just clarified that please, when we look at the Vedic world, we're looking at a symbolic world.
Yes.
Please don't take it just literally.
Yes.
And again, Sri Aurobindo has told us and has shown us how the fire that the rishi adores or the purohita, we are going
Right.
to come to the purohita in a moment, but the fire that is adored is not just that flame outside, but
Right.
is also the flame inside, as you've
Yes.
said, the flame that is in the belly, the fire in the belly, the fire in the heart, the fire in the eyes,
Right.
the fire in the soul, the sahasra, dhara, chakra, chakra,
Uh-huh.
etc. So now let me ask you, who is the person who says Agnem ire purohitai? Who is that speaker in that verse?
So the first verse was actually written by Madhuchanda Vishwamitra, who was a great sage and in a lineage of Vishwamitras. Vishwamitra means a friend to the whole earth. So he wrote it in a special form, which we can talk about someday. And it is the rishi. It is rishi is one who can see the truth. I'm just going to keep it very simple. He's a seer, right? But he sees what we call the mantra. But we will come to the mantra next time, because otherwise we'll go another 20 minutes on the mantra. But the rishi is a spiritual seeker, or someone who has realized, and he's sharing that knowledge with us. But when I approach Agni, I honor that love that is pure within me, that purity within me. I show my deep reverence for that. Now that is a transformative shift for me into another plane, into another kind of what in Sanskrit we call ayam, another dimension.
Another dimension, if you will.
Yes, yes. So I think the symbolic aspect of Agni is to be seen constantly. If you see the lightning, and the Veda is very beautiful, it connects all these symbols, and the symbols are symbols of light or fire. So the lightning that crack is equivalent to a revelation in our head, right? It suddenly a flash came in my head. That is Agni is connected to that. And the solar energy, Surya, that is supposed to be the that feeds the whole universe, we consider in our inner world as the truth that is holding us together inside. Eventually we realize that there's a whole world within that the Veda turns us towards, that normally we ignore. We are a whole universe inside, and probably universes inside that we have never paid attention to. I think if we start paying attention to that, we'll find something beautiful. And that's what where the Veda takes us.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Singh. I'm just thinking already our time is almost up, but I am sure that you have ignited, if not our love and passion for the Vedas, at least our curiosity.
Curiosity.
And especially for the younger ones, I want to say, look, we want to, actually bless you and help you make your lives beautiful. And Dr. Singh has shown us that you can make your lives beautiful through a consecration, through beauty, and through that sense of reverence for all of creation, and through respect for one another,
Yes.
and through cherishing the gifts of the earth, the gifts of the skies, the gifts of the heavens, And I think that you've also said something very important, that the Vedic vision is integrative. It is not fragmentary.
Yes.
It's bringing us together
Yes.
into what Sri Aurobindo would have called, integral yoga, because
Yes.
after all, only connect, as E.M. Forster once said, only connect. This is one of the big challenges of our times, that we have lost our connection with one another. We have lost our connection with the earth, with the sky, with the seasons, with light, as you said. And we wish to connect with all of you. So please do tell us what you think about this opening introductory episode. You can also tell us what you'd like us to discuss about the Veda. If you have a question, we can do an episode that will try to shine some light, as it were, to carry on with our metaphor on your queries. So now, last words once again to you, Dr. Singh. Our first love song, going back to the original scriptures of humanity or the poetry of humanity. Please tell us your last thoughts on today's topic, the first love song of humanity.
So look at the beauty of our ancients. These are our great forefathers, and they saw the whole earth as one family. It's a very powerful reminder. Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. We are one family. We have somehow limited ourselves, to 5 people, 6 people living under one roof. We are all living on the same planet. We are all connected, whether we like it or not. We are one family. And then another beautiful final word is, there is one truth that is holding this multiplicity, this diversity, this beautiful profusion of forms and names. What tremendous explosion of energy across universes, which is again Agni. We'll discover that later. But all this is one truth. The wise people call it by different names, but it is always one truth. And this truth is not a dead, inert truth, it's a dynamic truth. It's in you, it's in me, it's in everything. Even in this inert universe, the physical, which we see almost like a dead universe, it is not dead, it is alive. So, with those final thoughts, I pass it back to you. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure talking about it, and it's an honor to be talking about the Vedas.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. On that note of tad ekam, on that note of oneness, and again of love in the highest sense, the love that brings us together, and the love that I hope you will find, in a sense, that warmth, that affection, and also the light of knowledge that I hope you will find in this podcast. So please join us, and please like and subscribe to this channel, and also follow us on X. Thank you once again, Dr. Singh, for shedding light on the Vedas.
Thank you.